Hello everyone, and thank you for choosing this channel over so many others. I will do my best to entertain you, especially today because I feel happy and I feel awesome. And because of that, instead of focusing on the gloomy and depressing news, I want to make the most wholesome video ever. I want to cheer you up, give you that energy so you can go to work and be productive. So let's look at certain things that you may not know, and we can comment on them a little bit. For example, did you know that after mankind learned how to split the atom, there was this craze about radioactive things? And you had radioactive watches, radioactive drinks, and radioactive beauty products. No, I'm not making it up. Like, here's a commercial, for example, for radioactive makeup. Now, funnily enough, this did not make you glow in the dark or make your jaw fall off, despite what we would think. There doesn't seem to have been that much harm because of it, which is why probably a lot of people used it at the time. The level of radioactivity in this was incredibly low, but obviously it was still harmful, which is why it got pulled off from the market. Although this is not the case for all of the radioactive products. For example, this was the worst. It was called Radithor, and it was supposed to be medicine for a lot of illnesses. You got diabetes, drink Radithor. You got stomach ulcer, drink Radithor. You're a liberal, drink Radithor. That was how it was advertised, and this didn't turn anyone into Spider-Man. However, it did turn them into Cancer Man. Badum tish. Following up, we got the Dr. Smoke Camel. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there was a time when doctors actually encouraged people to smoke cigarettes. It was actually believed that it makes you more manly, deepens the voice, gives you that masculinity vibe. Now, later on, when it was found out that cigarettes are linked to cancer, there was a massive push in order to keep that information from reaching the public and the media, because tobacco was a very lucrative business and there was a lot of money to be made. Now let's get to something you most likely did not know about. This is Salvador Dali's pet. Yes, back then people were a little bit eccentric. When you had too much money to spend, well, what could you buy? Why not buy an anteater? And as you can see, most people were shocked to see this animal on the street. Because you have to understand, most people didn't have access to the internet back then, and unless they had a book with an animal atlas in their house, they probably never saw an anteater before. And you can see the looks of bewilderment and fascination on the people in the crowd. Now, I would super chat you for a change if you can tell me what do you think happened in this picture. If you said that this is a mugshot, then you are absolutely wrong. These people are three very prestigious students of the Princeton University. Now, back then, most families were incredibly conservative and they had very, very strict rules, with teenagers and young adults having very little liberty. So when they finally were allowed to go to a university far away from home, they would unleash some of that pent-up energy. One of the ways they unleashed the pent-up energy was through the annual freshman-sophomore snowball fight. And as you can see from these gentlemen faces, either the people throwing those snowballs back then had very powerful arms, or those snowballs might have had a couple of pebbles or two in. And coming up, here's an interesting one. This is called a store within a store. Back in the 1900s in London, it was quite expensive in order to have your own store. And this man showed a little bit of ingenuity. He opened a shoe shop in the window of a beverage store. Now, this is a more depressing picture. It takes place after the World War, and it shows a woman who is selling her children because she cannot afford to feed them. Apparently, the woman managed to sell all of these kids within 2 years, and this is not very different to what happened in Romania after the fall of communism, where due to the chaos of the legislation, a lot of people from the rural area sold their children for international adoption. And up until today, the scandal remains. A lot of people don't know whatever happened to their children. But what I am going with this is that this does not seem to be a phenomenon that was only for the English-speaking world. Many other nations, in case of poverty, have recurred to these very dramatic tactics. And we should be thankful that we live in societies where horrible things like this, fortunately, do not have to happen. Here's the funny one. This one looks a little bit futuristic, but in reality is one of the first concepts of a diving suit. The inventor was called Harry L. Baldwin, and he managed to invent this in 1914. However, due to the fact that lightweight materials didn't really exist at the time, nor did he have any idea on how to create a breathing apparatus, his invention wasn't very popular. But still, it was somewhat functional, well, as long as the air within this contraption managed to remain. A person might be able to dive for a couple of minutes at most before he would start to suffocate. So yeah, I mean, this did not get to see the production line. On the other end of the spectrum, this is how a hard drive used to look like. What you're seeing is not the whole computer, but only 5 megabytes of storage. And this is 1956 that we're talking about. This thing required 4 people in order to move it around, and it costed around $3,000. Now you might say, well, hold on a little bit, that's quite affordable. But you have to take into account the inflation, which would mean that by today you're looking at the price range of $30,000. Yikes. Now take into account that this memory space wasn't really that big at the time either, because 5 megabytes of storage, I suppose you could have 6 pictures stored, give or take, in obviously awful resolution. So it's no wonder that experts never believed computers are going to become household commodities, because not only were they incredibly expensive, but imagine having to carry something like this in your house. And again, this is just the hard drive. Now, I'm pretty sure all of you are familiar with the MGM logo. All of us have seen the lion roaring at the screen. And I'm pretty sure most of you also know that the roaring doesn't actually come from a lion. They filmed the lion but used the roaring from a tiger in order to make it more imposing. And again, at the time, people didn't have internet, so most people were unaware that the lion roar didn't actually come from a lion. But what's more interesting is how it was filmed. Yes, you see, a couple of people actually went in a cage with a live lion and recorded the king of the jungle. I suppose it takes a lot of courage in order to do something like this, and I don't know how much compensation these 2 brave gentlemen had, but they have definitely managed to create history because everyone around the world knows about the MGM logo. Now, believe it or not, in 1956, people took beauty pageants incredibly seriously because not only did women have to look good, but they also needed to have the perfect posture. And believe it or not, they had the perfect scientific method of analyzing whether or not their posture is perfect. That was to subject the ladies to X-ray while standing on 1 foot. And here you have the picture of the winners of the beauty pageant with the X-ray showing that their posture is indeed of peak human condition. And speaking of the ladies, if you wanted to go swimming in the past, well, you needed to have a specific dress code in certain places. Having the skirt a little bit too high from the knee, that could put you into problematic area and could get you kicked off from the beach. Asked to return when you have more appropriate attire. So, how did people know if the skirt is way too up compared to the knee? Well, they actually did have a man that was supposed to measure that. Luckily, today we have moved away from such patriarchal behavior and people do not measure the length of the skirt of women at the beach. You still have video game progressive journalists that measure the skirt of female video game characters, but that's another story for a different time. Now I have saved the best for last. Here you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with fellow Democrats forming the first Galactic Empire. This happened after AOC claimed that an attack on her life took place, and then other Democrats justified the need for extra security and, of course, persecution of political opponents in order to make sure that the safety of the Galactic Empire is going to be provided. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what you think in the comment section. And if you really want to support this channel, although I don't know why you would do that, there is a link to my subscribe star in the pinned comment. I will promise I will give you your money worth of buyer's remorse in return for your contributions. With that said, I'll see you guys in the comment section, and don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed the content. Take care.